Okay, what we're doing today is we're working on the 86 Corvette L98, and what we're working on today is the cold start valve switch. And this is on the driver's side of the engine. Let me see if I can get a good shot of it for you here. That right there is the Torx head that holds the switch on. See where I'm at? See that little plug-in connector, that plug-in that goes there? And to get that cold start valve switch out of there, you need a TX40 Torx head. This one right here. And a Warbly. This is a Warbly. See how it flexes around like that? And a 3/8 drive ratchet. And that's how you remove the bolt that holds that switch on. And before you get there, you have to remove your PCV hose just to make room for you to be able to get in there. And then you have to pull your harness back. It's best to unplug your injectors so it gives you some room to pull your harness back. And then that's where it's at right there. That's the cold start valve switch. And what it has is it has a tube. That tube that connects to it goes under the runners and to the very back of the fuel rail. See that big bolt? That's holding on the cold start valve to the fuel rail. So you have to disconnect that bolt, and that's actually a big vacuum that goes to your vacuum booster. And so you'll have some room to work with, and then disconnect this hose from the other side of the plenum. It's the very, very back, the one in the very rear of the plenum, and just disconnect it from the plenum, and then you'll have more room to maneuver around this part here, because it's really tight quarters right there. So to get that off, this one's a 5/8. And the one holding on the cold start valve switch to the fuel rail is, this one's a 3/4 inch. And that's the one, that's the big one down there. And once you get that removed, you'll be able to tell there's a teeny weeny O-ring on the end of there that I had to replace because it was kind of chewed up. And then on this end, there's an O-ring also. So, since you have the thing out, go ahead and replace the O-rings. Okay, what I ran into when I was doing that, because I believed I was having problems with my cold start valve, what I ran into was moving this around, wound up snapping on me. And that's the cold start valve switch connector. That's what it's connected to. And look how corroded those are. I don't know if you can see that, but they're very, very, very corroded. That means it's not getting the correct voltage to the switch to make it operate properly. See if you can see that better, man. That is, it's really nasty. And it was so nasty that it broke. It just snapped in half when I touched it. It's really hard to see, but take my word for it, it's totally corroded and nasty. There's only a couple of strands of those wires touching the actual connector. So we found a connector. So we're going to go ahead and replace that. The connector is a 2-18545 connector. Came from Napa. And this is the other part of the connector. See how it's all jacked up in there? This is the other part of the connector. So we're going to go ahead and replace that now. Here's the new connector we're going to replace it with. First I'm going to cut it off with wire cutters just to make sure I get all that corrosion off there. Then I'm going to come back with a razor blade and cut off the insulation around those wires, and then we'll go ahead and connect this to this one. And we're going to solder. We're not going to put butt connectors because the room is limited in this wiring harness. So I would rather try to put solder and the heat shrink wrap around those wires instead of putting butt connectors on it. So that's what we're going to do. I'll see how much I can show you while I'm doing it. But that's the project we're working on right now. Okay, we're going to go ahead and mark our wires to make sure we get the connector back on in the same position that it's on before it broke. So this is our new connector. Let's go ahead and put left on this one here. I'll put left because I remember when I pulled it off, this part was up. This little U shape right here was up. So we're going to put the same left wire from here onto this wire. So we'll mark that one to make sure we got it on there also. Okay, we're going to cut the wire back. Not only was this part corroded up here, but this part back here going into that connector was also corroded. So we're going to cut that back past this right here. Using these pliers here to cut it back. Remember this part? This is what we just cut off. See how it's cracked right there also? Not to mention this bad part here. So now we're going to cut the insulation back on the wire that's going to the wire harness. I'm going to do that with the razor blade. When you strip back the insulation, it should look like this. It should look like that when you get done stripping off the insulation. So you have to do the same thing with the new the new connector. So now what we want to do is we want to solder this connector to the harness right here. I pretty much think we can get away with leaving all this on here. I don't feel like cutting back and measuring. I think we can leave it all on. I'm talking about the excess of the wire here. You know, I was thinking about cutting it back to here to where it's just enough to go in there and fit nice and everything, but I think I'm going to go ahead and leave it all on there. Okay, now I'm getting ready to solder it. I got this third hand thing that this magnifying glass on it, and you know, this thing right here with the little feet on it. Got a couple little alligator clamps on it. So what I did was I put those together, and now I have a thing that's holding things in place so I can solder these wires. So that's what I'm doing now. See how it is? That's the wire that's coming off the harness going to the cold start valve switch. So I'm going to go ahead and get that one soldered up. Please excuse this interruption. You won't miss any of the video. I'm in the process of expanding my repair facilities, and I need your help. How can you help, you ask? Well, you see that little icon below that's shaped like a heart with a $sign in it? When you click on it, it gives you amounts to choose from to support my efforts to bring you quality automotive repair tips and procedures. Please choose any amount to show your support. I thank you for your interest in my videos. And now back to your regularly scheduled program. One down, one to go. Don't forget to put your heat shrink tube on the wire before you solder it. Wire number 2. We just connected a cold start valve switch to the wiring harness. Now we're ready to plug it in and put the thing back together. Okay, we got it installed. This is where we just fixed the connector right there. 2 white wires are going back into the harness. And you put your PCV valve back on where it goes to the engine there, the intake. Hook up all your injectors, because you have to remove those so you can have room to work with the harness. Hook all your injectors back up. And put your bolt back in that holds the PCV tube to the intake. And then you're good to go. We just installed a connector on our cold start valve switch on my 1986 Chevrolet Corvette. So that's one of the last things, the fuel delivery system, that we have just completed. So we're going to go ahead and try to start it coming up here the next time we're out here. Hope that helped. Connector to the cold start valve switch on the 1986 Chevrolet Corvette.